9:47 p.m. I was booking flights, 2 tickets for the kids. One for me, Austin to Chicago. A surprise weekend for my wife. Nothing fancy. Just a way to remind her that after 18 years, I still paid attention, and that's when it happened. A message blinked across her phone. 5 words. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for round 2. Then, a second message. Almost too fast to breathe between them. Sorry. Sent to the wrong person. The wrong person. My heart stuttered once. Then started counting differently. Wrong person. I stared at those words until they blurred. Until I couldn't tell if they were apology or confession. Her name's Emily. My wife. 18 years. 2 kids. A home that still smelled like morning coffee and laundry detergent. And in one blink, I became the wrong person. I sat there with the blue light washing over the room. The tickets were still on the screen. Half filled. Passenger 1, Daniel Moore. Passenger 2, Eli Moore. Passenger 3, Sophie Moore. The kind of list that used to mean everything I loved was still in one place. But that message, it felt like someone opened a window in the middle of winter. My first instinct was to explain it away. Autocorrect. A joke. A teammate from work. My second instinct, the one that came from somewhere deeper, told me not to. I didn't rage. I didn't break anything. I just listened to the silence in the house and felt it answer me back. She was in Chicago on a conference. 3 nights. 4 meetings. 1 presentation. She'd called earlier calm. Sweet. Normal. Said she missed the kids. That the city was cold. That the hotel coffee was terrible. Every word fit. None of it sounded wrong. Until now, I opened her thread again. Read back through the last few days. Safe. TD sentences. Good morning. Busy day ahead. Love you. Talk later. The punctuation was neat. Deliberate. Professional. It read like an email. Not a marriage. I could have called her. I could have demanded names. Explanations. Proof. But all that would have given me was noise. And I needed clarity. Not chaos. So, I sat there at the kitchen counter, letting my mind rewind the last few months, the missed dinners, the new perfume, the sudden late calls labeled team check-ins. It wasn't a crash. It was a quiet pattern forming behind me, and I just turned around to see it. Somewhere upstairs, Sophie was laughing in her sleep. Eli's music leaked faintly from behind his door, and that's when I knew whatever came next. I couldn't let them see me break. My job wasn't to explode. It was to protect. To find the truth the way an engineer finds a fault line carefully, methodically, without letting the whole structure collapse. I looked down at her phone again. The message still sat there. Polite. Damning. Permanent. I read it one more time. Slower now. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for round 2. Then the excuse. Wrong person. But she was right about one thing. Something in this marriage had gone to the wrong person. I opened my notebook and wrote the date. March 14. Then one sentence under it. If the truth lives behind a locked door, I'll find it. No shouting. No guessing. Just the truth. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, it waits. Patient. In the dark, I closed the notebook, breathed once, and whispered to myself not as a husband, but as a man who just remembered what silence could mean. Brothers, what would you do if a single text rewrote your marriage? Would you walk away or walk through that door? Morning came the same way it always did. Coffee hissed. The toaster clicked. And the sun laid its usual grid of light across the kitchen tile. If you didn't know better, you'd think everything was fine. Eli sat at the counter, one earbud in, pretending to scroll through notes. Sophie was counting blueberries into her cereal like it was an experiment that required precision. 18 years of mornings had trained us all to move like clockwork in sync. Efficient. Predictably. The rhythm of a family that believed it was safe. Emily rolled her suitcase to the door the day before, kissed Sophie on the hair, gave Eli the kind of half-hug that teenage boys pretend not to want. She'd told me, "Don't forget the field trip forms," and smiled, like she always did, quick. Automatic. The kind that leaves before it fully arrives. I'd smiled back, because that's what husbands do. Now the house hummed on autopilot. Coffee, lunchboxes, homework, shoes by the door. I went through every motion like a man keeping his hands busy so his thoughts wouldn't start a fire. The phone buzzed once on the counter. Her name. A short message. Long day ahead. Wish me luck. No heart emoji. No love you. Just tidy words arranged like furniture in an empty room. I typed back, "You'll do great." Then stared at the bubble that didn't reply. I told myself she was probably already in a meeting. Probably busy. Probably tired. Probably. The word that lives halfway between belief and denial. Sophie looked up from her cereal. "When's Mom coming home Sunday?" I said. She nodded. Went back to her math. Eli didn't say anything. Just glanced up once. Eyes sharp for a second longer than they should have been. He didn't know what was wrong. But he could smell it, kids always can. After they left for school, the silence in the house stretched out thin and clear. I walked through the rooms, touching the familiar things, her mug by the sink, the sweater she left on the chair, the faint trace of her perfume in the hallway. All of it ordinary. All of it pretending to be the same. Trust is strange that way. It doesn't disappear in a scream. It erodes in small ways, the way someone's voice changes when they say goodnight. The way texts start to sound like memos. The way you stop being included in their stories. I used to think trust was something you built. Now I understood it's something you maintain like air pressure in a tire. You don't notice it's leaking until you're already veering off the road. By noon, I'd answered emails, handled client calls, ticked off half my list. From the outside, I looked like a man having an ordinary Thursday. Inside, I was rearranging pieces, trying to find where the truth fit. Another message pinged in the afternoon. "Dinner with clients tonight. Late one. Love you guys." The words "love you" were there this time, but they read like they were written with the wrong hand, hesitant, borrowed, unsure. I caught my reflection in the monitor, the calm face of a man who hadn't decided what to do yet. But inside, something had already shifted. I knew this couldn't stay a maybe forever. Doubt doesn't sleep. It just waits for quiet rooms. So I finished work, washed the dishes, helped Sophie with her spelling, and told Eli to get some rest. Every movement smooth, controlled. Deliberate the way you move when you're standing on a thin sheet of ice. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the text again, those same 5 words echoing like static. Last night was perfect. If it was a lie, I'd forgive. If it was the truth, I'd face it. Either way, I wasn't going to wait for it to come to me, because sometimes truth doesn't knock. And if it doesn't, I will. It started as a thought I tried to ignore, a whisper that wouldn't stop repeating itself. Go find out. By Friday morning, that whisper had turned into a plan. Clean, simple, practical. Book the tickets, pack light, call it a surprise. The kids were out of school for spring break. Emily didn't know. It sounded innocent enough, a husband bringing the family to visit Mom during her work trip. No suspicion, no warning. Just truth showing up unannounced. I opened the laptop, fingers steady. Heart, not so much. Austin to Chicago. Friday night. 3 tickets. More. Daniel. More. Eli. More. Sophie. Each name landed on the screen like a quiet declaration. We're coming. I told myself this wasn't revenge. This was clarity. I wasn't going there to catch her. I was going there to stop wondering. The credit card beeped. The seats were confirmed. A harmless sound that suddenly carried more weight than most vows. That evening, I sat with the kids at dinner. I said it casually, like mentioning a road trip. "How about we go surprise Mom in Chicago this weekend?" Sophie's eyes lit up instantly. "Can we, for real?" Eli tried to stay cool, but a smile cracked the corner of his mouth. "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone light. "Let's give her a weekend she won't forget." Sophie clapped, already making a list of things she wanted to see. Eli leaned back, nodded once, and went back to eating, but his eyes stayed alert. Kids can sense when excitement has a shadow behind it. Later that night, while they packed their backpacks, I opened my phone, texted Emily, "How's Chicago treating you?" Her reply came fast. "Busy. Long days. Exhausted. Miss you guys. Tidy. Safe. Controlled." Every word lined up perfectly, like someone afraid of leaving fingerprints. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I put the phone face down. Saturday morning. The airport buzzed like a hive. Eli moved through the crowd like a quiet observer. Sophie bounced between souvenir stands. And me, I just watched the departure board flicker. The flight number changed from on time to delayed 2 hours. The hum of overhead lights filled the gaps between my thoughts. Sophie came back with a pretzel almost bigger than her face. Eli sat beside me. Hood up. Headphones in. Pretending not to care. We looked like a normal family waiting for a normal flight. But under the small talk and the snack crumbs, something kept knocking inside me. Half of me still believed this was a misunderstanding. Half already knew it wasn't. And both halves sat there in the same chair, trying to breathe the same air. I told myself to focus on the kids, their laughter, their normalcy. That was my compass. Whatever waited behind that hotel door, I had to walk into it as their father first, and everything else second. The speakers crackled. Calling our boarding group, Sophie jumped up, waving her ticket like it was a golden key. Eli followed, eyes steady. Silent as always, I stood, feeling the weight of the next few hours settle into my bones. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was the simple gravity of truth, the kind that doesn't shout. It just waits. As we walked down the jet bridge, Sophie humming beside me, I thought about one thing. Whatever I found in Chicago, whatever I saw when that door opened, I couldn't lose myself there, because the moment I did, my kids would lose me too. So I made myself a promise. Quiet. Unspoken. Whatever happens behind that door, I'll stay the man they still believe I am. The kind who doesn't run from truth, he walks straight into it. Chicago greeted us with cold light and silence. The kind that makes every thought sound louder. By the time we reached the hotel, it was close to midnight. Sophie had fallen asleep against my arm in the cab. And Eli had gone quiet. The kind of quiet that watches everything. The Waldorf looked the way wealth always does. Polished. Distant. Polite. The doorman smiled. The marble floor swallowed sound. I walked up to the counter, gave my name, and waited for the words I already knew were coming. Yes. Mr. Moore. The clerk said after a moment. Mrs. Moore is with us. Room 1214. He typed something. Voice steady. Would you like to be on the same floor? I nodded once. My throat didn't trust me yet. Then he added it softly, as if the information weighed something. She just had dinner delivered. For two. For two. That small, sharp phrase landed exactly where I feared it would. I could feel my pulse start to count differently again, slower, heavier. But my tone stayed level. Thank you, I said. We'll handle our own bags. I turned toward the kids. Voice, calm, always calm. Come on, guys. Let's get some rest first. Mom's probably asleep. Sophie yawned, nodded. Eli just studied my face for a second, then said nothing. Upstairs. The hallway felt too soft, too quiet. We found our suite, just a few doors down from hers. Sophie went straight for the bed, half asleep before her shoes were off. Eli lingered in the doorway. He didn't ask what we were doing there. He didn't have to. I told him, watch your sister. I'll be right back. He looked at me like he already knew it wasn't going to be that simple. Room 1214 sat at the end of the hall, under a sconce that hummed faintly. I stood there for a moment, my hand hovering near the door but not touching it. This was the line between knowing and pretending. I knocked 3 times, even, controlled. No answer. I waited. Then again, a little firmer. Still nothing. The hallway's air felt thick, like it didn't want to move. Then, from behind the door, faint sounds. A voice. A quick shuffle. The dull clink of glass against wood. My chest tightened. The noise stopped. Then, a slow click, the latch shifting. The door opening just a sliver. Emily's face appeared in the gap. Her hair was down, slightly tangled. She wore a hotel robe, tied tight at the waist, her eyes wide, startled, and searching past me down the hall. Jack, she whispered. My name half a question, half a warning. What are you doing here? I kept my tone even, steady enough to hide the storm beneath it. I brought the kids, I said. They wanted to surprise you. Her lips parted, then closed again. She shifted, blocking the gap with her body. I could smell perfume, champagne, somewhere behind her. The air moved a faint, nervous rustle. She said, This isn't a good time. Daniel. I'm working. With Greg. We're going over the presentation. Her voice trembled. Just barely. Like it was trying to find the script she hadn't rehearsed for. I studied her face the way you study an instrument every flicker. Every misplaced note. The corner of her mouth twitched. Her hand hovered near her collarbone. Her eyes, always honest before, wouldn't land on mine. Then let me say hello. I said quietly. 5 minutes. That's all. She shook her head fast. Robe tightening under her grip. Now's not good. Her tone clipped. Defensive. Emily. I said again. Softer this time. The kids are 10 steps away. Sophie's asleep. Eli's pretending not to worry. They came all this way to surprise you. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She swallowed. Looked toward our suite. Then back at me. And for a heartbeat. I saw the truth flicker across her face the moment before a lie catches fire. She didn't answer. She just pressed her lips together, stepped back, and closed the door. The latch found its seat with a small, final click. I stood there, eyes on the wood grain, waiting for something. Footsteps. Excuses. Anything. But nothing came. Only the hum of the air vent. Steady and indifferent. Behind that door, I could hear muffled movement, hurried, careful, ashamed. The sound of people rearranging themselves into innocence. I didn't knock again. I didn't shout or plead. I just breathed. Some truths don't need to scream. They stand there, quiet and alive, until the lies around them can't breathe anymore. I turned away, walking back down the hallway, slow and steady, each step landing like punctuation. At the suite door, I paused, hand on the handle. Inside were the only two people who didn't deserve the weight of what I'd just confirmed. Eli looked up when I entered. His eyes searched my face, reading it like a page he didn't want to finish. Sophie stirred in her sleep, murmured something about the plane. I forced a small smile. Go ahead and get some rest, I said quietly. Mom's busy tonight. We'll see her in the morning. He nodded once. No argument. No question, just quiet understanding. The kind you don't teach your children, but they learn anyway. When the room finally went dark, I stood by the window, watching the city lights ripple on the glass. The truth had finally arrived, and it wasn't loud. It just stood there, steady, cold, and undeniable. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. The room was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Every sound, the hum of the heater, the city outside kept reshaping itself into one truth I wasn't ready to name. By dawn, I'd stopped pretending it was all in my head. I shaved, buttoned my shirt, and made a decision. Not to argue, not to accuse, to confirm. At 7, I asked the front desk to speak with the manager. A man named Richard met me in a quiet office behind the lobby. Everything about him looked calm. Gray suit, silver watch, a voice trained to stay neutral. I told him what I needed. Not access to her room. Not a confrontation. Just footage from public spaces only. Lobby. Bar. Elevator. Enough to replace suspicion with fact. He studied me for a long second, then nodded. We value privacy, he said. But we also understand delicate family matters. He turned the monitor toward me. The screen flickered to life. Sunday night. The revolving door spun once, twice. Then she appeared, Emily, my wife, walking beside a man in a gray suit. His hand rested on the small of her back, gentle, familiar, practiced. Not a gesture of work, a gesture of habit. They paused under the chandelier, laughing about something I couldn't hear. She looked at him the way she used to look at me, when the world was still simple. Richard clicked forward. Tuesday night. Empty lobby. Late hour. Elevator opens. Same man. Same woman. They step out. He leans in. She meets him halfway. Not surprise. Not hesitation. Recognition. The kind of kiss you don't learn yesterday. My breath slowed. Not from shock, but from confirmation. Suspicion had turned into film, time-stamped. Color-corrected truth. Richard stopped the clip and looked at me carefully, as if waiting for me to come apart. I didn't. I just nodded. Could you give me a copy? I asked. He reached into a drawer, placed a small USB drive on the desk, and slid it toward me like a peace offering. If you choose to address this, he said quietly, Please consider discretion, especially for your children. I will, I answered, and meant it. Back in the suite, I set the drive on the table. It looked so harmless. Sitting there, a handful of pixels holding 18 years of trust. At breakfast the next morning, I found her. Corner table, business casual smile, surrounded by colleagues. The same man beside her, face buried in his phone. She froze when she saw us. Sophie ran into her arms. Too young to read the air. Eli stayed at my shoulder, watchful. Still, good morning, I said. Her voice jumped an octave. Daniel, what a surprise. She hugged Sophie tight. Overcompensating. I waited until the waiter left, then leaned forward. Emily. Could I have a quick word with your team? She blinked. Color draining from her face. Daniel. Not here, but I was already opening the laptop. The clips played in silence. Lobby. Bar. Elevator. The truth looping quietly on screen while silverware clinked in the background. No shouting. No scene. Just gravity doing its work. When the final frame froze, I closed the lid. The sound of it shutting was louder than any word I could have said. I stood, met her eyes, and said calmly, I didn't come here to destroy you, Emily. I came to make sure you couldn't destroy us any further. Then I turned to my kids. Let's go. We walked out the same way we came in, quiet. Steady. Heads high. No one followed. The only sound behind us was the soft scrape of a chair being pushed back. And the long, heavy silence of a life finally telling the truth. The flight home was quiet. Sophie leaned against my shoulder. Asleep before takeoff. Eli stared out the window. Headphones in. Pretending not to think. I didn't tell them what to feel. Some truths don't need explaining, they settle in the air and do the explaining for you. Back in Austin, the house looked exactly the same. Same porch light. Same smell of coffee and pine cleaner. But it wasn't the same house anymore. You can't walk through fire and expect the walls to stay white. I unpacked the bags, fed the dog, and made a call I never thought I'd make. A family lawyer. Her voice was calm. Professional. Built for people standing at the edge of things. She walked me through it, timelines. Papers. Custody. Property. Keep it factual, she said. Don't feed emotion. Document what matters. Facts protect your peace. So that's what I did. I printed what needed printing. I started a folder. Not for vengeance, for order. The kind of order that lets kids sleep through the night. I didn't tell Emily right away. When I finally did, I said it simply. I'm filing. For the kids' sake. I'd like to keep the house and their schools the same. Her face went pale. Then red. Then pale again. She opened her mouth, searching for a defense that wasn't there. I'm sorry, she whispered. I made a mistake. I nodded. You did. She started to cry, small, controlled. Corporate tears. I don't even know why I did it. And I believed her. Not because it excused her, but because that's how most destruction starts, without knowing why. When the apology faded, I told her what I'd already decided. I'm not angry anymore. I said, I'm finished. That's different. She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. People understand rage. They don't understand peace that no longer needs them. I stayed calm. I set boundaries. Pickups and drop-offs by text. Emails for decisions. No late-night phone calls about feelings. No postmortems. No circular autopsies of love. I wasn't going to rewrite the past. I was going to rebuild the future brick by brick. Quietly, Eli spoke less, but listened more. He'd started helping Sophie with homework. The way big brothers do when they've seen too much too young. Sophie asked when Mom was coming home. I told her. She'll visit soon. But we're okay here. And it was true. We were okay. Bruised. Not broken. At night, when the kids slept, I'd walk through the house, checking locks, closing doors. Not out of fear, out of habit. Peace requires maintenance. Sometimes Emily called. Her tone carried that mix of guilt and nostalgia people use when they miss being needed. I listened, said what was necessary, and nothing more. She wanted forgiveness. I wanted stability. We weren't negotiating the same thing. When she asked if we could try therapy, I told her the truth. No, Emily. This isn't about repairing us. It's about protecting them, she cried again. I didn't stop her. Tears weren't my problem anymore that night. I sat on the porch after the kids were asleep. The Texas air was warm, and the stars looked cleaner than they had in months. For the first time in a long time, I could hear silence without flinching. I realized something simple. Anger burns fast. But responsibility lasts. It doesn't make headlines. It just holds the house upright while the fire dies out. And that's what I chose. Not revenge. Not forgiveness. Just steadiness. Because when everything else falls apart, steadiness is the only thing left that can still build. Life didn't fix itself overnight. It just started moving again. One small act at a time. The mornings got quieter. Steadier. Eli left early for practice. Sophie asked about breakfast before cartoons. We found a rhythm that didn't depend on anyone else showing up. I stopped looking at the past like a crime scene. It wasn't something to solve anymore, it was something to outgrow. So, we built new habits. Friday walks along Ladybird Lake. No big talk. No forced wisdom, just steps. Wind. And time doing its quiet work. Sometimes Sophie skipped stones until she laughed herself breathless. Sometimes Eli walked beside me. Silent. But present. That was enough. At home. I helped with homework again. Real help this time. Not half listening while checking emails. Not nodding through my own distractions. I learned what it meant to actually be there. I put my phone down when they talk. I told myself, I look them in the eye until they finish. That became my rule. The new way I measured success. Not in money. Not in control. But in presence. Because somewhere between heartbreak and healing, I realized they were watching me for cues on how to survive disappointment. And if I taught them anything, it needed to be this: that a man's strength isn't in how loud he breaks. It's in how quietly he rebuilds. Eli started opening up again. Piece by piece. One day, it was about a game. Another day, it was about a girl he liked but wouldn't admit. I didn't push. I just listened. You learn more from silence than speeches. Sophie started asking bigger questions. Dad, do you still love Mom? And I told her the truth. Simple and age-appropriate. I love what we built. I love you and your brother. That's enough, she nodded. As if that made sense to her heart. Even if her head wasn't ready yet. The days didn't sparkle. They just got solid again. The kind of solid that peace needs to stand on. Dinner at 6. Homework at 7. Lights out by 9. Structure. Consistency. And the soft mercy of normalcy. Sometimes, when I caught myself thinking about Emily, the hurt, the betrayal, the lies I'd breathe and remind myself of the truth that saved me. Revenge is a circle. It keeps you spinning in the same fire that burned you. Responsibility is a road. It doesn't promise comfort, but it takes you forward, and I'd chosen the road, not because I'm noble, because my kids needed pavement, not smoke. Now, when I look at them laughing, growing, healing, I see it clearly. The road works. It's not glamorous. It's not fast. But it holds, and that's all we needed, something that holds. The sun was slipping down over the lake, turning the water into gold. Sophie was skipping stones again. Eli sat beside me, shoes off, calm in a way he hadn't been for months. And for the first time in a long while, the air felt light, honest. I thought about that night in Chicago. Room 1214. The sound of the latch. The silence that followed. That door closed a chapter I thought would define me. But it didn't. It just cleared the space for something new to begin. The door at 1214 closed. A new one opened, one that faces peace. I've learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet act of choosing dignity over destruction. Sometimes it's staying calm when you have every reason not to. Brothers, if you were me, would you have fought for her? Or fought for yourself? Tell me below. Because the strongest man isn't the one who hits back. It's the one who walks away, still holding his integrity. Share your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories. Stories where men face betrayal and walk out stronger.